You keep waiting for the right moment, the right job, the right amount of money, the right amount of energy, the right sign that it's finally time to begin. I need to tell you something, and I need you to actually hear it, not just hear of it. That moment is not coming. Not because life is unfair to you, not because you got a worse deal than everyone else, but because you've been waiting for a season that was never on the calendar to begin with. Somewhere along the way, you started believing discipline is something that happens to you. That one morning you'll simply wake up focused, wake up driven, wake up clear. But discipline doesn't arrive. It's built. One choice at a time. One inconvenient decision at a time. Usually before anyone is watching. And usually when you'd rather not. And here's the part that's going to sting a little, so let me say it plainly. It's not your boss. It's not the economy. It's not your city, your family, your background, or your luck. It's your philosophy. Your philosophy about time, about effort, about what you deserve and what you're actually willing to earn. That philosophy is the soil. Everything in your life, your habits, your income, your relationships, your peace of mind, is a plant growing out of that soil. And right now, some of you have never once checked what you're growing in. So for the next 50 minutes, I'm not going to try to pump you up. Motivation is cheap, and it's usually gone by Thursday. I'm going to hand you something sturdier, a philosophy. And if you actually use it, it will do more for the next 5 years of your life than the last 15 did. Let's start with the truth nobody puts on a highlight reel. Most people don't fail because life crushed them in one blow. They fail in inches. A skipped morning here, a lowered standard there, a promise to start Monday that quietly turns into start next year. By the time they notice, it isn't a bad week anymore. It's a bad decade. You are not behind because you're incapable. You are behind because, somewhere, you signed a quiet agreement with good enough. Today, we tear that agreement up. Let's talk about a marketplace you've been shopping in your whole life, whether you realized it or not. I call it the excuse economy. Nobody advertises it. Everybody visits it. In the excuse economy, you can trade your ambition for an explanation. And the explanations sold there are good ones, convincing ones, the kind that make total sense to anyone who hears them. The market's different now. I wasn't born with the connections. I didn't get the resources other people got. I just don't have the time. Here's the cruel trick of that marketplace. Everything sold there is true. That's what makes it so dangerous. It isn't built on lies. It's built on real facts, dragged to the wrong conclusion. Yes, the market is different. Yes, you didn't have the connections. Yes, your resources were limited. Yes, your time is tight. And none of that, not one word of it, has ever been the deciding factor. Not for you, and not for anyone who's ever built a life worth having. Doesn't start with sweeping changes or grand gestures, but with small, deliberate actions repeated each day. Same city, same starting line, and one of them will use that storm as an excuse, while the other uses it as a curriculum. Same wind, different sails. You don't get to choose the wind. Nobody does. But you have complete, uncontested authority over the angle of your sail. That's your philosophy. That's your response. It is the only lever you have ever truly had, and it's the only one you'll ever need. So here's your first paradigm shift. Let it land before you keep scrolling through your life. Circumstances are not a life sentence. They are a starting position. Weak philosophy asks, why is this happening to me? Strong philosophy asks, what is this trying to teach me? Same event. Two completely different futures grow out of that one-word difference in the question. Now let me ask you something. Not for me, for you. When something goes wrong, who's the first person you talk to about it? Yourself, honestly, or everyone else, conveniently? Here's the split that quietly decides everything. Doesn't start with sweeping changes or grand gestures, but with small, deliberate actions repeated each day. To friends, to family, to strangers online. It builds a detailed, reasonable, well-organized case for why this one isn't theirs to fix. A growth philosophy processes pain by extracting it. What is this costing me if I stay here another year? What's the 1% I can control by Monday morning? What does this failure know that I don't yet? One of those people is building a legal defense. The other is building a life. I'm not asking you to pretend your struggles aren't real. They are. I'm asking you to stop paying rent in a house called blame. It's expensive real estate. It has never once appreciated in value. And nobody, I mean nobody, has ever built a future from that address. Here's the test. Not tomorrow. Today. The next time something goes wrong, catch yourself in the first 10 seconds. Notice which question shows up first. Why me? Or what now? You won't be able to stop the first question from knocking, but you get to decide which one you let in the door. That's not positivity. That's philosophy. And philosophy is the only foundation strong enough to build 50 years on. Because once you stop outsourcing the blame, you're left with a much bigger, much better question. If it's not the wind, then what exactly do you need to learn about sailing? That question has an answer. Farmers have known it for 10,000 years. Let's go learn it. Here is a truth so old, so simple, that we've become sophisticated enough to forget it. You reap what you sow. In a season you do not get to choose. A farmer does not plant corn on Monday and harvest it on Friday. He doesn't get to skip winter because he's motivated. He doesn't get to skip winter because he's motivated. He doesn't get to skip winter because he's motivated. He doesn't get to skip winter because he's motivated. He doesn't get to skip winter because he's motivated. He doesn't get to skip winter because he's motivated. He doesn't get to skip winter because he's motivated. Plant in spring, harvest in fall, rest in winter. Break that order, and the land doesn't punish you out of spite. It simply returns exactly what you gave it. No more, no less. Now here's why this matters to you. Sitting there, wanting your life to be different by Friday. You are trying to run your life like a microwave, in a world that only responds like a farm. You want the harvest of confidence, without the season of practice. You want the harvest of a strong body, without the season of discomfort. You want the harvest of financial freedom, without the season of disciplined, boring, unglamorous saving and earning and learning. Here's the contrast, and I want you to feel both sides of it. If you plant excuses, you will harvest more of exactly what you have right now. Not because life is cruel, because that's the seed you chose. If you plant discipline, even when no one's watching, even when it's inconvenient, even when you can't see a single leaf poking through the soil, you will harvest a life that finally matches the effort you were always capable of giving. The law of the farm doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your feelings on a Tuesday morning. It only responds to what you actually put in the ground. Let me ask you something. What have you been planting for the last 3 years? Not what you meant to plant. Not what you told people you were planting. What actually went into the ground, day after day, while nobody was clapping. Because whatever it was, you're either about to harvest more of it, or you already are. Here's where most people get discouraged and quit. And I need you to understand why, because it will save you years. They forget that sowing and reaping happen in different seasons. You do not get paid the day you plant. You get paid months later, sometimes years later, for a decision you may have already forgotten making. This is the part that separates the people who stay in the game from the people who fold in month 3, convinced that it's not working. It is working. You simply haven't reached the harvest season yet. The seed is doing what seeds do, underground, invisible, unglamorous, and completely on schedule. So the question isn't, why isn't this working? The question is, am I still in the sowing season, or am I standing at the edge of the harvest and about to quit 1 week too early? Most people who fail didn't actually fail. They quit during winter and called it proof that spring was a myth. Don't be the farmer who plows the field once, gets no harvest by Thursday, and burns the whole farm down out of frustration. Be the farmer who shows up in the cold, in the mud, in the uncertainty. Because he's not farming for this week. He's farming for a harvest he trusts is already in motion. Your philosophy is the soil. Your daily choices are the seed. Your patience is the season. Your character is the harvest. That's not a metaphor to make you feel inspired for 10 minutes. That is literally how every successful life you admire was built. Nobody skipped the dirt. Let's go a layer deeper, because there's a mistake hiding inside this metaphor that trips up even people who understand it. Some of you are planting good seeds in 10 different fields. A little discipline here, a little hustle there, never in the same spot long enough for roots to actually form. That's not sowing, that's scattering. The farmer who wins doesn't plant 50 different crops on 50 different plots, hoping one of them works out by accident. He picks his field. He works that field, season after season, until the soil itself starts working with him instead of against him. Focus is not a personality trait. It's a decision about which field you're no longer willing to abandon. So before we go any further, I want you to actually answer this, quietly, right where you're sitting. Which field have you been abandoning every time it got boring? That field is still there. The soil hasn't gone anywhere. It's just been waiting for you to come back and finish what that one decision, chosen and kept, actually requires. Let me tell you about two farmers who lived on opposite sides of the same valley. Same soil. Same weather. Same brutal summer that didn't see rain for 11 straight weeks. The first farmer watched his crops struggle and said what most people would say, "There's nothing anyone could do with a summer like this." He watered when he remembered. He weeded when he had energy. Mostly he waited for the sky to change its mind, because in his eyes, the sky was in charge of his harvest. The second farmer had the exact same 11 weeks, the exact same cracked soil, but he woke up before the heat every single morning and irrigated by hand, row by row, because he couldn't control the sky and he'd stopped trying to. He mulched the soil to hold whatever moisture existed. He checked each plant like it mattered, because to him, it did. That fall, the first farmer's field produced barely enough to get by, and he told everyone in town about the drought, accurately, honestly, and in great detail. People nodded. They understood. It really had been a brutal summer. The second farmer's field, in the exact same drought, produced a harvest that made the neighbors ask what he knew that they didn't. Here's what he knew. The drought was real for both of them. Identical. Measurable. Nobody was making it up. But the drought was a condition, not an instruction. It never told either farmer what to do about it. That part, they each supplied themselves. This is the story of almost every hard season you will ever face. The circumstance is real. Nobody's pretending your drought is imaginary. But the circumstance was never holding the shovel. You were. So the next time you're tempted to accurately, honestly, and in great detail explain your 11 weeks without rain, ask yourself the second farmer's question instead. What can I still do with the water I actually have? That question, asked enough mornings in a row, is the entire difference between a harvest and an excuse. Now let's talk about the sentence that, if you actually absorb it, will change how you make every decision for the rest of your life. There are only two kinds of pain available to you. You don't get to choose whether you feel pain. You only get to choose which kind. There is the pain of discipline. It weighs an ounce. It shows up in the form of a 5 a.m. alarm, a no to something tempting, an hour of practice nobody sees, a hard conversation you'd rather avoid. And there is the pain of regret. It weighs a ton. It shows up 10 years from now, in the form of, I should have, I wish I had, if only I'd started when I first thought about it. Discipline's pain is measured in ounces, felt today. Regret's pain is measured in tons, felt for the rest of your life. Here's the contrast, and it's the whole chapter in one breath. If you choose the ounce, you pay a small, repeated, forgettable price, and you build a life you respect. If you avoid the ounce, you will eventually pay the ton, and you'll build a life you quietly apologize for. Most people aren't lazy. I want to be really clear about that, because just work harder is a lie sold by people who've never studied why people actually get stuck. Most people are simply unwilling to feel a small amount of pain today, so life quietly hands them a much larger bill, due later, with interest. That interest is called compounding, and compounding is the single most underestimated force in the human experience, because it's boring in year 1, and undeniable by year 10. Let me show you what that looks like in both directions. The person who reads 20 pages a night doesn't feel like a genius on night 1. Night 1 feels like nothing. But that person, 4 years later, has read almost 30 books that the person scrolling their phone at 11 p.m. never opened. Same 20 minutes. 2 completely different libraries built inside 2 completely different minds. The person who saves a portion of every paycheck doesn't feel rich in month 1. Month 1 feels like sacrifice. But that person, 10 years later, has built a financial floor that most people spend their whole lives standing above, wondering how it's even possible. Doesn't start with sweeping changes or grand gestures, but with small, deliberate actions repeated each day. That's what consistent input always produces, but with small, deliberate actions repeated each day. None of this required talent. None of it required luck. It required exactly one thing: the willingness to pay a small, boring, repeatable price on purpose, instead of a massive, devastating price by accident. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and who you're capable of becoming. Discipline is the choice you make when motivation has already left the room. Discipline is the price, paid in small, forgettable installments, for a life you never have to apologize for. Say that with me, even just in your head. Discipline is the bridge. Discipline is the choice. Discipline is the price. Now here's the question I actually want sitting in your chest for the rest of today. What is 1 ounce of pain you've been avoiding that is quietly turning into tons of regret while you wait for a better mood to show up? Name it. Actually name it, because you already know what it is. You knew before I finished the sentence. Let me be careful here, because this is where people twist this lesson into something ugly. Discipline is not punishment. It's not burnout dressed up in a motivational quote. It's not 16-hour days and a collapsed nervous system, with the wreckage relabeled as hustle. That's not discipline. That's just pain with no direction, and it collects the same interest as doing nothing at all. Real discipline is quieter than that. It's sustainable. It looks like showing up at 70% for 10 years, not at 110% for 10 days before you break. The tortoise in that old story didn't win by moving fast. He won because he never stopped moving at all. That's not a fable for children. That's a strategy for adults who finally stopped trying to win the marathon by sprinting the first mile. So, if you've been telling yourself you need to overhaul your entire life by Monday, new body, new business, new bank account, new personality, let that pressure go. It's not required. It's not even useful. What's required is smaller and far more repeatable. 1 ounce, paid on purpose, today, then again tomorrow. That's the entire program. Everyone who's ever built something real ran that same simple program, just for longer than everyone else was willing to. Let's clear up something people confuse constantly, because it's cost a lot of people their entire year. Motivation is a feeling. Feelings are weather. They show up, they leave, they come back for no reason, and leave again for no reason. If you wait for motivation to build a life, you're building on top of weather. That structure was never going to hold. Discipline is not a feeling. It's a decision, made once, in advance, so you don't have to renegotiate with yourself every single morning. I train at 6 is not a feeling. It's a decision that no longer requires your mood's permission. Here's the test. On the days you don't feel like it, and there will be many, does the discipline still hold? If yes, you've built something real. If the whole plan collapses the moment your mood changes, you never actually had a plan. You had a feeling wearing a plan's clothing. Stop waiting to feel ready. Feelings were never going to be the foundation. Decisions were always going to be the foundation. Make the decision once. Let the weather do whatever it wants. I want to talk to you about winter, not the weather, the season inside a life. Because somewhere in the last few years, you had a winter. A layoff, a failed attempt, a relationship that ended, a version of yourself that didn't work out the way you'd planned. And somewhere in that winter, a dangerous thought moved in and made itself comfortable. This is just who I am now. I need you to hear this clearly. Winter is a season. It was never meant to be an address. Nature doesn't panic in winter. The tree doesn't apologize for losing its leaves. It doesn't consider itself a failed tree. It simply understands something we forget. This part is temporary, and it's not even wasted. Roots are doing their quietest, most important work exactly when nothing visible is happening above the ground. Your failures are not your final chapter. They're a chapter. There's a difference, and that difference is the whole game. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes. They experience one hard season, and they rewrite their entire identity around it. One failed business becomes, I'm not a business person. One relationship ending becomes, I'm unlovable. One rejection becomes, I'm not good enough. You are not your worst season. You are the person who is going to walk through it and, eventually, plant again. Here's the contrast. If you treat winter as identity, you'll stay frozen long after the temperature has actually changed. If you treat winter as season, you'll keep your tools sharp, keep learning, keep showing up in small ways, so that when spring actually arrives, and it will, you're not starting from zero. You're starting from everything winter quietly taught you. Here's a question worth sitting with. What if the failure you're still ashamed of wasn't the end of your story, but the coldest, darkest, most necessary part of the setup? Every successful person you respect has a winter in their history that, at the time, felt permanent. It wasn't. It was just the part of the story that made the harvest mean something later. So if you're in a winter right now, actually in one, not performing strength you don't feel, here's what I want you to know. You don't have to feel warm to keep doing the small, disciplined things that spring will need from you. You just have to keep doing them. Seasons change on their own schedule, not on your mood schedule. Your job was never to control the season. Your job is to keep tending the field regardless of which one you're standing in. Because here's the quiet secret about seasons. The people who make it are not the ones who never had a winter. They're the ones who kept a few seeds in their pocket the whole time it was cold. This also means something for the version of you standing in a good season right now. If things are going well, say thank you, and then get back to work. Because summer is exactly when the harvest for next year gets decided. Complacency is the only season that has ever quietly ended a winning streak. And if you've been waiting for permission to stop punishing yourself for a season that already ended, this is that permission. Not permission to stay there, permission to finally leave it behind and start planting again, today, with whatever small seed you actually have in your hand. All right. Enough looking backward. Let's talk about Monday morning. Except I don't want you to wait until Monday. I want you to start in the next 24 hours. Because starting fresh next week has quietly killed more good decisions than any actual failure ever has. Everything we've covered so far is philosophy. Beautiful, true, and completely useless if it doesn't turn into 5 or 6 specific things you actually do with your Tuesday. So here's the pivot. Not 5 years from now. Today. First, control your inputs before you try to control your outputs. You cannot expect a disciplined life while feeding your mind an undisciplined diet of noise, comparison, and other people's opinions for 6 hours a day. Whatever you let into your mind repeatedly becomes the philosophy running quietly in the background of every decision you make. So today, cut one input that's been lowering your standard. One account, one show, one habit of scrolling before your feet even hit the floor. You don't need to fix everything. You need to remove one weed so one seed has room to grow. Second, choose your associations on purpose. You will slowly become a combination of the conversations you have most often. Not because you're weak, because that's how every human being is built. So ask yourself honestly, are the people you talk to most pulling your standard up, or quietly giving you permission to stay exactly where you are? You don't need to end relationships dramatically. You need to be honest about which ones are feeding your philosophy, and which ones are just feeding your comfort. Third, become a student again. Formal education got you a starting point. It was never designed to get you the whole way. The people who keep growing after age 30 are the ones who never stopped being a student of something, their craft, their character, their field. So today, pick up one book, one course, one conversation with someone who's already where you want to be, and treat it like it's more important than entertainment. Because it is. Entertainment helps you feel something for an hour. Education helps you become someone for a lifetime. Fourth, build one keystone discipline, not 10 scattered ones. Don't try to overhaul your entire life today. That's the microwave thinking we already agreed doesn't work on a farm. Instead, choose one discipline that, if you kept it for the next 90 days, would make every other part of your life a little easier. For some of you, that's movement. For some, it's sleep. For some, it's finally opening the book on your finances you've been avoiding. Pick the one, not the 10. The one. Fifth, raise the standard, not just the goal. A goal says, I want to earn more. A standard says, I am the kind of person who shows up prepared, on time, every time, whether I feel like it or not. Standards build the person who can actually hold the goal once it arrives. Most people chase goals with the character of someone who was never going to keep them anyway. Don't be most people. Sixth, and this one is simple but almost nobody does it. Review your day, honestly, before you sleep. Not to punish yourself, to notice. What did I plant today? What did I water? What did I let go to weed? 60 seconds of honest review, repeated for a year, will teach you more about yourself than any seminar you'll ever attend. Here's the contrast for this entire chapter, and it's the only one that actually matters. If you wait for the perfect plan before you start, you will still be planning next year. If you start today with one honest, unglamorous discipline, you will be a different person by the time next year actually arrives. You don't need a new life by Friday. You need one true discipline, kept past the point where it stopped feeling exciting. That's it. That's the entire pivot. Everything else is commentary. Now, I know what's happening in the back of your mind right now. You're already planning to start tomorrow, or Monday, or once things settle down. I need to interrupt that thought before it finishes forming, because it has never once settled down for anyone, ever, in the history of ambitious plans. There is no finish line called settled. There's only the decision to begin inside the mess, or the decision to keep waiting for a mess-free life that doesn't exist for any human being on this planet. So let me ask you directly, what is the one thing sitting in your mind right now as you hear this, that you already know you should do today? Not eventually, today. You already know what it is. You knew it before this video started. The clarity was never the problem. The willingness was. So here's your assignment, and it's small on purpose. Before you go to sleep tonight, do the one thing. Read the 10 pages. Send the honest message. Skip the input that's poisoning your standard. Write down tomorrow's one discipline. Small on the outside, enormous on the inside. Because the size of the action was never the point. The direction of the action was. Here's an old idea, dressed in new language. It's not the load that breaks you, it's how you carry it. Two people can carry the exact same responsibilities, same job, same bills, same family, and one collapses under it, while the other builds an empire out of it. The weight was identical, the carrying was not. That's what a standard actually is. Not a bigger load, a stronger way of carrying the load you already have. There's a part of growth almost nobody wants to talk about, because it doesn't look like growth at all. It looks like loss. A gardener doesn't just plant. A gardener prunes. She cuts back healthy branches on purpose, because she understands something counterintuitive. A plant that's allowed to grow in every direction at once grows thin, scattered, and weak. A plant that's cut back with intention grows stronger, in the direction that actually matters. Most people only think about addition. Add a habit, add a goal, add a course, a book, a system, a morning routine with 14 steps. And then they wonder why nothing takes root. Because a garden that's never weeded eventually can't tell the difference between what it planted on purpose and what simply blew in on the wind. So here's a question the pruning gardener would ask you, and I want you to actually sit with it. What have you been letting grow in your life simply because you never got around to cutting it back? The commitment that no longer serves who you're becoming. The relationship that quietly costs more than it gives. The hour of scrolling that grew from 5 minutes into 90 without you ever deciding it should. None of these arrived as weeds. They arrived as small, harmless-looking seeds, and you let them grow because pulling anything up feels like a kind of failure. It isn't. Pruning is not failure. Pruning is the most advanced form of gardening there is, because it requires you to believe in the harvest enough to protect it, even from things that look, on the surface, perfectly fine. You don't need a bigger garden. Most of you don't need one single new habit added to an already overcrowded life. You need fewer things, growing on purpose, tended well. So today, alongside the one discipline you're planting, choose one thing to cut back. Not dramatically, just honestly. One weed, pulled by the root, so that everything else you've already planted finally has room to become what it was always capable of becoming. I want to show you the sentence that quietly divides every person who eventually succeeds from every person who eventually gives up. It's not about talent. It's not about luck. It's about which side of this sentence you live on. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Read that again, because your whole future depends on which half of it you've been living in. Wishing it were easier sounds like this. I just need less pressure. I just need a better boss. I just need things to calm down. I just need a lucky break. Wishing you were better sounds like this. I need to become someone who can handle pressure. I need to build skills that make me valuable anywhere I work. I need to become the kind of person calm follows, instead of waiting for calm to find me. I need to build so much capability that luck becomes almost irrelevant. Here's the part nobody wants to hear. The world is not going to get easier. It never has for anyone in any generation. What's changed every single time, in every single life that turned around, is the person standing inside the difficulty. If you wish for less difficulty, you'll spend your whole life waiting on a world that was never going to cooperate. If you wish for more capability, you'll spend your life becoming someone the difficulty can no longer intimidate. This is the difference between chasing hacks and building character. Hacks are a shortcut around the work. Character is what's left after you've done the work long enough that it became who you are. Hacks might get you a result once. Character gets you the ability to produce that result again and again in completely different circumstances for the rest of your life. That's why the goal was never just get the thing. The goal was always become the person who could get the thing and keep getting things like it for the next 50 years. Let me ask you something that might sting a little, and I mean that with respect. If you got everything you're currently wishing for, right now, today, no work required, would you actually know how to keep it? Most people, if they're honest, say no. Not because they're bad people, because they wished for the harvest and skipped the farming. And a harvest you didn't earn has a strange habit of slipping through hands that were never trained to hold it. So here's the shift I want you to make, starting today. Stop asking life to lower the bar. Start asking yourself to grow past it. Don't wish for fewer problems. Wish for more wisdom to solve the ones you have. Don't wish for less competition. Wish for more skill than the competition. Don't wish for an easier season. Wish to become someone winter can no longer scare. That's not toxic positivity. Toxic positivity tells you to smile through a problem you haven't solved. This is the opposite. This is telling you the problem is real, the difficulty is real, and you are fully capable of becoming someone who's no longer intimidated by either one. You were never behind on luck. You were behind on becoming. Start today. Not the whole transformation, just the becoming. One skill, one honest hour, one version of yourself, slightly stronger than yesterday's. Think about the difference between a plant that's been staked to grow straight and a tree that's built its own strength against real wind, over real years. The staked plant looks fine until you remove the stake. The tree doesn't need one. It built its own strength by standing in actual weather. Hacks are the stake. Character is the trunk. One needs constant support. The other becomes the support. For you, and eventually, for other people standing near you in their own storm. That's what becoming actually buys you. Not an easier life, a stronger one. And a stronger life can hold weight an easier one never could. One more piece before we zoom out to the long view, because it will save you from a mistake that looks identical to progress until it's too late to fix cheaply. Discipline gets you up the ladder. Nobody's arguing that. Show up, do the work, keep the standard, and you will climb. That part is almost guaranteed. But climbing was never the whole question. The whole question is, which wall is the ladder leaning against? You can climb with real discipline, real consistency, real sacrifice, and arrive at the top of a wall you never actually wanted to be near. More hours at a job that was never the goal, just the habit. More approval for a version of yourself you don't fully recognize. More of something you started chasing so long ago you've forgotten whether you ever actually wanted it. Or just started climbing because everyone around you was climbing too. This is why philosophy has to come before effort, not after it. Effort without direction just gets you to the wrong place faster. And the wrong place, reached efficiently, is still the wrong place. So before you commit to another year of climbing, ask the question most people skip, because it feels inconvenient in the middle of a busy week. If I climb exactly this ladder for 5 more years, at the pace I'm currently climbing it, and I reach the very top, will I actually be glad I'm standing there? If the honest answer is yes, good. Now go climb it with everything we've talked about today. Because discipline applied to the right wall is the most powerful force available to a human being. If the honest answer is no, or even, I'm not sure, that's not a reason to stop climbing. It's a reason to check the wall before you climb another single rung. Moving the ladder is always cheaper at rung 10 than it is at rung 90. This isn't permission to quit every time it gets hard. Hard is often exactly where the right wall lives too. This is permission to occasionally stop, mid-climb, and ask an honest question before your legs get too tired to consider the answer. Discipline decides how fast you climb. Philosophy decides whether the climb was worth taking. Let's do something most people avoid, because it's uncomfortable in the most useful way possible. Let's look 5 years down the road. 2 versions of you. Same starting point, same talent. Same opportunities available today. Only one variable changes. Philosophy. Version 1 keeps the philosophy you've had for the last several years. Comfortable, reactive, waiting for the right conditions, explaining, when things go wrong, why it wasn't really their move to make. 5 years from now, that version is not in some dramatic disaster. That's not how it works. That version is just, still here. Same complaints, slightly more worn in. Same goals, slightly more distant sounding when they say them out loud. Still waiting for Monday. Still waiting for the economy. Still waiting for a season that, 5 years later, still hasn't arrived. Because it was never going to arrive on its own. Version 2 adopts the philosophy we've talked about today. Not perfectly, not without setbacks, but consistently enough that small disciplines had 5 years to compound. 5 years from now, that version has read a small library nobody else in their circle bothered to open, has a body that reflects 1,000 ordinary decisions, not one dramatic transformation, has savings that started embarrassingly small and became, over 60 months of consistency, a genuine floor of security, has relationships built with people who were also busy becoming, instead of people who were only busy complaining, has weathered at least one real winter, and instead of it becoming an identity, it became a chapter, and then a lesson, and then, eventually, a story they tell other people who are stuck in their own. Same person, same starting talent, same amount of luck, good and bad, that life hands out to basically everyone. The only variable that moved was the one you actually control, the philosophy behind the daily choice. Here's the part I need you to really absorb. Neither version felt dramatically different on any single day along the way. Day 47 didn't feel like a turning point. Neither did day 300. The difference didn't show up as a lightning bolt. It showed up as a slope. Quiet, boring, compounding, and by year 5, completely undeniable. That's the part hustle culture gets wrong when it sells you the myth of the overnight transformation. There is no overnight. There's only enough ordinary nights, stacked in the same direction, until the ordinary becomes undeniable. So here's the question this whole video has actually been building toward. Which version are you currently on pace to become? Not who you hope to become. Who your current daily choices, extended honestly 5 years forward, are actually building. If the honest answer makes you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is not an insult. It's information. It's the most useful kind of information a person can receive. Because unlike most information, this kind comes with an exit door still open. You are not locked into either version. Nobody is, on any single day of their life. The field is still there. The season is still available. The only thing that closes the door permanently is deciding right now that it's too late to replant. It's not too late. It's just later than you'd have liked. Which means the only real mistake left available to you is waiting even longer to start. 5 years is going to pass regardless of what you decide in the next few minutes. That part isn't optional. It's the one guarantee everyone gets, rich or poor, ready or not. The only genuinely optional part is which version of you is standing there when it arrives. So don't aim at 5 years from now. Aim at today, and let today, repeated honestly, take care of the 5 years on its own. That's always how it's worked, for everyone who ever got there. So let's bring this all the way home. You were never missing talent. You were never missing opportunity. Not in any way that actually explains the gap between where you are and where you know you could be. What you were missing was a philosophy strong enough to survive a bad Tuesday. Now you have one. Your circumstances are not your life sentence. They're your starting position. Your philosophy is the soil. Everything else is just weather passing over it. Your daily choices are the seed. Your patience is the season. Your character is the harvest. Discipline is the bridge. Discipline is the choice. Discipline is the price. Paid in small, forgettable installments, so you never have to pay the much larger one called regret. Winter is a season, not a sentence. Whatever chapter broke you is not the whole book, unless you decide to stop writing. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. One of those requests goes to a world that was never listening. The other goes to the only person who was ever actually in charge. You. So here's what I'm asking you to do, and it's smaller than you expect, and heavier than it looks. Not a new life today. Just one true discipline, kept honestly, starting in the next hour. Then again tomorrow. Then again after that, long after it stops feeling exciting, which is exactly the point where almost everyone else quits, and exactly the point where your entire future is quietly decided. Because 5 years from now, someone is going to be living the life your choices today are currently building, whether you plant on purpose or by accident. Make sure it's someone you're proud to become. You are the architect. You are the farmer. You are the only philosophy your life has ever actually been waiting on. Stop waiting for the season. Go plant the seed.